"Sir, maintenance staff goes through the back." The woman didn't even look up when she said it. Her nails clicked against her keyboard like her hands had somewhere more important to be. She didn't ask for my name, didn't glance at the leather folio under my arm, just saw the dark skin, the rolled sleeves, and the silence, and made her judgment. I just nodded. No point in correcting her. Not yet. It was 8:42 a.m. I was 20 minutes early, but I always was. Better to observe before you enter a room, especially one where they don't expect you to belong. I walked past the glass wall of the main lobby toward the elevator bank. One of the junior associates, a young white guy with a badge too shiny to be old, caught sight of me and smirked. "You missed a spot, boss man," he said, pointing down to the corner tile near the planter. "Probably some intern's frappuccino." He laughed and walked past me, brushing his expensive coat against my shoulder. I stood there, eyes still on the elevator numbers. Second floor, third, now descending. Not a soul had asked who I was. That was the part that always struck me. They never ask. Just assume. Slot you into the role that makes the most sense for them. I made my way toward the side seating area, near the marble coffee table with all the company brochures. I sat, crossed my legs neatly, and opened the folio. Inside were the final numbers, the last review, the revised terms. I didn't need to look, I'd memorized them. But still, I flipped through them slowly, page by page, while the receptionist kept glancing over her monitor like she wasn't sure if I was homeless or just stubborn. 3 a.m. A man in a light blue suit stormed into the lobby. Red tie, hair combed, back with too much product. His eyes went to the receptionist, then immediately darted to me. He frowned. "Did you let this guy in?" he asked her, loud enough for the marble to echo it back. "There's a client coming this morning, Karen. You know we can't have randoms in the lobby." She gave him a helpless look. "I told him to go around back." I looked up, slowly, locking eyes with him. He looked away first. Still, he came over. Standing above me, too close, the way men do when they want to prove something. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to wait outside. This is a private lobby." I smiled, then gently closed the folio. "I'll be sure to pass on your hospitality." "To the board," I said calmly. "I believe they're expecting me at 9:15. He blinked. "What?" I stood. "I'm Malcolm Holt," I said, offering my hand. "From Holt and Bram Investments." He didn't take it. The receptionist gasped, and I just watched their faces change. First confusion, then panic. The man's lips parted like he was about to apologize, but I was already walking toward the conference wing, where the glass doors had just been unlocked. They'd learn soon enough who really signs the checks around here. But for now I let the silence carry my name ahead of me. The conference room had a view that screamed money. Corner glass, skyline stretching out like it belonged to the people sitting at the polished table. They didn't look up right away when I entered. Too busy scrolling, murmuring, laughing softly like their world wasn't about to shift 6 inches to the left. Only one man stood, older, West African maybe, with kind eyes, and the kind of posture that said he'd been overlooked more than once in his life too. "Mr. Holt," he said, stepping forward and taking my hand firmly. "You're early. That's rare in this building." I smiled. Old habits. My father used to say, if you're on time, you're already losing. He nodded with understanding. "I'm Aide, finance counsel on the acquisition." "Pleasure," I said, and meant it. The others, 5 in total, all wearing varying degrees of expensive indifference, finally looked up. One woman, blonde, designer heels, kicked off under the table. 3 men in near-identical suits. And at the head of the table, Mark Densley, interim CEO of Thornbridge Tech. We'd never met face-to-face, only on calls. And I noticed immediately he didn't recognize me. I took my seat without waiting for permission. Densley cleared his throat. Sorry, you are ahead of schedule, I said, laying the folio down. But we'll get there. Aide chuckled softly. One of the suited men whispered something to the woman next to him. She rolled her eyes. Still no one offered me water. Still no one said, "Thank you for coming." I watched as Densley's assistant finally entered, leaned over to whisper in his ear. I could see it in real time. The blood draining from his face, the micro-twitch in his jaw, the way he straightened like he'd just remembered how chairs worked. "Oh," he said stiffly, trying to recover. "Mr. Holt, yes. Yes, of course. My apologies, we weren't expecting you until 9:15, I finished. I know, I was in the lobby. Silence. I let it sit. Let it stretch out. Uncomfortable and hot, like steam in a closed room. No worries, I said finally. Calm. We can start now." It was then that the receptionist's voice buzzed through the intercom on the table. "Mr. Densley, there's a man in the lobby claiming to be Malcolm Holt? I think the one you were expecting." Densley looked like he wanted to melt into the floor. I reached forward and pressed the button. "Let her know I'm already inside," I said. "But do ask if she ever found that janitor." Only. Howard laughed. The others tried, but it came out like choking on their own pride. I opened the folio again, slid it across the table to Densley. "These are the finalized terms," I said smoothly. "Revised down, as agreed, due to recent behavioral liabilities." The woman flinched. The guy next to her paled. They hadn't realized yet. Everything they'd done up to this point was noted, weighted, folded into the deal, because dignity doesn't just come from how you carry yourself. It comes from how you remember. And I remembered everything. The room turned quiet in that sharp, sterile way corporate rooms do when ego meets consequence. Mark Densley skimmed the contract, but his eyes weren't reading. They were scrambling, looking for a foothold, a floor, a way to pivot. You could almost hear the gears grind. "This is a bit lower than we discussed," he said carefully. I leaned back just enough to let the sunlight catch the side of my face. "It is," I replied. "And that's because I did a walkthrough this morning." He blinked. "A walkthrough?" "Of the culture," I said plainly. "The moment I walked in, your staff taught me everything I needed to know about the way this building works, the way they treat people they assume are beneath them." The woman in the heels dropped her gaze to her tablet. The guy who'd whispered earlier started clearing his throat like that would erase the smirk I'd seen on his face 15 minutes ago. I figured if the company itself couldn't be cleaned up overnight, I said, the least I could do was adjust the price to reflect the mess. Aide tried to hide his grin behind his fingers. He failed. Mark folded his hands, every motion too tight, like a man used to being the smartest one in the room, until the room changed shape without asking. "Mr. Holt, we truly regret." "No. Need," I cut in, gentle but firm. "Regret only matters when it costs something, and from today on it will." I flipped to the second page. The new staffing clause, the oversight board, the anonymous review channel going live next quarter. "This isn't just a buyout," I continued. "It's a correction. You can either be a part of it or a casualty of it." One of the suits shifted like he was about to object, then saw the look on Aide's face and shrank. Densley said nothing, just nodded, swallowed, signed. I stood. "No hard feelings," I said. "Sometimes people need a little reminder that the world is bigger than the lobby." I walked toward the door, and just before stepping out I turned back. "Oh, and do tell your front desk," I added, "to stop judging books by their cover." I smiled, soft and sharp at the same time. "Especially when that cover has your company's name written in the fine print." Then I left, and this time no one told me to take the back elevator. I didn't go back to the hotel after the meeting. I went back to the building. Lobby again. Same desk, same receptionist. She flinched when she saw me, the kind of reflex you only get when someone's name echoes louder than you expected. Her mouth opened, searching for some apology that would sound less pathetic than the truth. I spared her. "I'm not here for that," I said, setting the tote bag gently on the counter. "I just wanted to return something." She looked confused until I pulled it out. A used microfiber cloth, still damp, folded neatly. "You told me to go around back," I said, voice soft but weighty. "So I did, and I did." When I left, earlier I made a detour through the service hallway, cleaned that little spill by the planter myself. Not for them, for me. To prove a point they'd never see coming, she stared at the cloth like it was a weapon. "You didn't have to. No," I said, already walking away. The doors hissed open as I stepped outside. Full wind caught the edges of my coat. And just across the plaza I saw him again. Frappuccino boy. He was leaning on the banister, talking loudly into his phone, laughing like the world had never taught him caution. I walked straight toward him. His back was to me, so I waited, arms folded, polite, until he turned. When he did, I saw the shift. Recognition, realization, regret. His jaw tightened. "Mr. Holt," I said. "You can call me Mr. Holt now." He nodded quickly, eyes bouncing away like a guilty dog. "You said something earlier," I reminded him. "About a spill." His face flushed. I didn't mean it like that." "No need to explain," I said. "I actually appreciated it." He blinked. "You reminded me of something important. There's no such thing as a small act of disrespect, especially when it's constant, casual, unchecked." He opened his mouth, but I kept going. "That moment you laughed? That was a price tag. You just didn't know it yet." I handed him a slip of paper, his name, his badge number, and a date. "What's this?" "Your retraining session," I said. "Mandatory. New ownership, new policy." He stared down at the paper. "But I didn't know it in exactly," I said, stepping past him. Then I paused. "And that's what makes it worse." The boardroom wasn't the only thing that needed restructuring. 2 floors up, in a tucked-away HR suite that still had carpet from the 90s, I sat across from Lydia Green, Director of Human Resources. She was shaking as she poured coffee into the chipped company mug, her blouse collar slightly askew. "I didn't know they'd treat you like that," she kept saying. I'm so sorry if I'd been down there." "You weren't," I said evenly. "But that's not why I'm here." She blinked. "I'm not interested in apologies, Lydia. I'm interested in patterns, and from what I've seen, this place has them." She nodded slowly, as if the weight of the truth was finally pressing into her spine. "There have been complaints," she admitted, "but upper management usually waves them off, says it's high-performance culture, says we can't get distracted." I leaned forward, folding my hands. "You know what happens when people stop listening to complaints?" She didn't answer. "They become case studies," I said. "The kind taught in business schools under How Not to Lead." Her face paled. "I'm giving you full autonomy," I continued. "To restructure, clean house, put in real systems of accountability, but I'm also giving you something you've never had before in this company." She looked up. Power. Lydia's eyes glassed over for a second, not tears, but something. Close. Relief, maybe. Recognition that someone had finally seen how much she'd swallowed to keep the machine running. "I'll need time," she whispered. "You've got it, and staff, and a direct line to me." She nodded again, firmer this time. The coffee sat untouched between us. "One more thing," I said, standing. She rose with me. "There's a young woman at the front desk. Karen." Lydia winced. "Don't fire her," I said. She blinked. "Really?" "Let her learn," I replied. "Everyone deserves one mirror held up to them. What they do with the reflection is up to them." And then I walked out, leaving Lydia standing a little taller than before. Downstairs, the energy had already shifted. Whispers traveled faster than emails. People glanced up from their screens when I passed. One man held the elevator for me with both hands like it was church doors. I didn't smile. Respect earned from fear is just borrowed time. But respect earned from truth, from reminders, that kind of respect has a root. And I was just getting started planting. The office buzzed like a shaken hive. People who'd once laughed loudly in meetings now whispered behind glass doors. The corner office crowd, those who usually greeted each other with backslaps and insider smirks, suddenly walked straighter, spoke softer, checked their calendars like they were waiting for Judgment Day. And in the center of it all, I walked calmly, like a man who'd seen the blueprint beneath the building and knew exactly which beams were rotten. I made my way to the break room, not because I was hungry, but because it was always where the real company culture lived. Between stale coffee and microwave leftovers, that's where people told the truth. Sure enough, when I walked in, 2 junior staffers froze mid-conversation. One of them, a young black woman in braids, badge clipped low on her hip, stepped instinctively aside, like she wasn't sure if she was allowed to be seen talking. I nodded at both. "Relax," I said. "I just came for water." The man beside her, light-skinned, nervous, fumbled with the fridge door. "Of course, sir. Let me—" I waved him off. "I have hands." They watched as I filled the paper cup. Then I turned to the woman. "What's your name?" "Janelle," she said. Janelle Banks. How long you been here?" 14 months. "And how many times has someone spoken to you like you mattered?" She blinked. "I'm sorry?" "Exactly." She smiled, surprised. "Not often." I nodded. "That's going to change." The man shifted, eyes darting to the hallway. "Look," I said to both of them, voice low but clear. "You don't have to shrink anymore. I'm not here to fire people for being quiet. I'm here to fire the ones who made you quiet." Janelle's mouth parted like she wanted to say something more but couldn't, so I said it for her. "You're not invisible." The lights flickered slightly overhead. An old bulb, or maybe just the building responding. As I stepped out, Janelle called softly, "After me, Mr. Holt." I turned. I heard what you did," she said. "The janitor thing, the lobby. That story's already moving through the floors like wildfire." I shrugged. "Good. Let it burn." She grinned, eyes brighter now. And as I left the room, I knew the real change wasn't just in contracts or corner offices. It was in rooms like that, quiet places, small moments where dignity grows back, one voice at a time. The elevator dinged open to the top floor, the executive suite. Mahogany walls, frosted glass, that specific brand of quiet you only hear in spaces built to intimidate. It wasn't just an office. It was a monument to ego. I stepped out and was immediately met by Densley's assistant, a young woman named Brenner, who hadn't made eye contact the first time I arrived. Today, she stood up when she saw me. No clipboard. No excuses. Just silence and her hand gesturing toward the largest office at the end of the corridor. "He's waiting inside," she said, barely above a whisper. I nodded and walked the hallway slow, not for theatrics, but because power deserved to move with patience. Inside, Densley sat behind the wide desk that used to belong to Thornbridge's founder. His tie was off, jacket draped over the chair behind him, a man unraveling quietly. "Mr. Holt," he said as I entered. "Can we talk?" "You're talking," I replied, taking the seat across from him. "I made a mistake," he started. "A few, I'll own that." "Good," I said, "because I wasn't planning to hold them for you." He inhaled, steadying himself. "I know you have options, restructuring, replacing me, folding us under your partner firm." I raised a hand. "I'm not here to discuss punishment, Mark. I'm here to explain transition." His brow furrowed. Slid the envelope across the table. Inside the new hierarchy chart, my name where his used to be. "Effective Monday," I said. You'll transition into an advisory role, reduced hours, increased listening. He didn't speak at first, just stared at the paper like it had teeth. I built this company. No, I corrected softly. You inherited it. What you built was fear. He looked up then, something hot flickering in his face. I'm not some villain, he muttered. Neither am I said calmly. But you made me feel like one for daring to walk through your front door without a badge that screamed importance. He closed his eyes, jaw tight. I don't hate you, Mark. I don't even want revenge. I just want the next Malcolm who walks in here to be seen for what he is. I'm not what you assume. He nodded. Eventually it was the smallest, saddest nod I'd ever seen, but it was something. As I stood to leave, I paused by the door. Oh, and the receptionist? Yes? She'll stay, but she'll rotate every Friday. His brow lifted. Why? Because humility is like oxygen, I said. When you go without it too long, everything starts to die. And I left. The corner office would still be there. But the tone, that had already changed. 3 weeks later, I walked into the building again. This time I didn't wear the muted coat or carry the leather folio. No need. Everyone already knew my name. Not because it was etched on some plaque, but because it had traveled through whispers, glances, Slack threads, and uncomfortable conversations that finally turned productive. The front desk was quieter. How Karen stood when she saw me, and for the first time her face didn't twist into judgment. Good morning, Mr. Holt, she said, with something close to respect. Not forced, not fear, just recognition. How's the rotation working? I asked, glancing toward the new face beside her. An older white gentleman from facilities, now training on front desk duty as part of the new empathy protocol. She smiled. It's eye-opening. People are starting to say, thank you, more. That's a start, I said. I made my way up. No elevator glances, no security checks, no assumptions. When I entered the second-floor break room, Janelle was laughing with 2 new hires. She stood straighter now, wore her ID high. She nodded when she saw me. Mr. Holt, she said. How's your new role? She grinned wide. Officially team lead as of this morning. Earned, I said. Not given. She beamed. The 2 new hires watched the exchange, eyes wide, not with fear but with hope. Down the hall I passed Ade, who gave me a quick salute and a knowing smile. HR was humming, not because they had power, but because they were finally being heard. And when I reached the conference room, the same one I'd been dismissed from in silence weeks ago, the chairs were already full. But 1 seat was left open at the head of the table, no name tag because they didn't need one. As I took that seat, Densley, now seated quietly to the side, listening, taking notes, gave a respectful nod. I've updated the mentorship. Notes, he said softly. And I've spoken with each department head. They're on board. Good, because this wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about restoration. About planting roots in ground that used to spit people out, about building a company where the next man mistaken for the janitor might choose to sweep the floor anyway, just to see who's watching. Because sometimes the greatest power isn't what you say in the boardroom. It's how you walk through the lobby.